En el emocionante mundo de los negocios y la comunidad latina, hay un hombre que brilla con fuerza, J.R. Gonzales. Este destacado empresario, estratega político y orador público ha dedicado su carrera a defender los intereses de las comunidades latinas y minoritarias. Con más de 2 décadas de experiencia en posiciones de liderazgo en la Asociación de Cámaras de Comercio Mexicano-Americanas de Texas, J.R. Gonzales se ha convertido en una voz respetada en la comunidad empresarial hispana. Hoy en día, Gonzales es el presidente de la Fundación de Liderazgo y Gestión Hispana y vicepresidente ejecutivo de TAMAC, donde se encarga de proporcionar recursos y programas de liderazgo a empresas y emprendedores hispanos. Además, sirve en el Consejo de Pequeñas Empresas del Banco de Exportación e Importación de los Estados Unidos, contribuyendo al crecimiento de pequeños negocios en todo el país. Antes de estos cargos, González fue presidente de la Cámara de Comercio Hispana de los Estados Unidos, supervisando los esfuerzos de la organización para abogar por empresas hispanas a nivel nacional. También preside la Fundación Educativa de TAMAC y ha sido instructor y facilitador de capacitación para numerosas organizaciones y corporaciones en todo el mundo. A lo largo de su carrera, González ha sido un defensor incansable de los empresarios hispanos, brindando entrenamiento mediático a figuras influyentes, desde funcionarios electos hasta CEOs. Con su vasta experiencia y conocimiento en la comunidad empresarial hispana, J.R. González sería una adición excelente a cualquier junta directiva que represente a pequeñas empresas. Su compromiso con la defensa de las comunidades subrepresentadas y su capacidad para proporcionar valiosos recursos y programas de liderazgo lo convierten en un activo invaluable para cualquier organización. Bienvenido, J.R. González.
J.R. Gonzales.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for making the time.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. It's a real honor.
You know, it's always an amazing experience to be able to talk to people, not who are just entrepreneurs, but are inspiring other entrepreneurs. And I think that's exactly what you are on the quest of doing these days. Obviously, people saw in the beginning your trajectory and everything you've done. But what led you to sort of begin this podcast and start bringing these different entrepreneurs in there?
Well, I've always been involved with business. I'm a bit of an entrepreneur myself, as you well know. And I think it was during COVID that it really started striking me. When COVID struck, my speaking engagements really dwindled. There wasn't any speaking engagements. I wasn't out there as much as I used to be. So I said, what's an alternative? And podcasting seemed to be the answer. So I started playing with the podcast. I did a few episodes, kind of blew it off for a while, did a few more. So it got to a point now we're doing them pretty regular, almost about one a week. There's a lot of work that goes into it, but I think it's a good venue. Awesome. And our podcasts are audio only. As my dad told me, he goes, "Mijo, you have a face for radio." So, okay, Dad. Yeah. So that's why we went audio only. It's just quicker and easier to produce, and a lot of people do like listening to podcasts as they're driving or working around the house or out in the garden doing other things. So, and like I said, it's cheaper to produce. So.
No, absolutely. Now, we were talking earlier that the whole objective is to inspire, right? And I was looking at all your social media profiles, everything I was able to read about you. I mean, you really champion the entrepreneur, but also the Latino community. Like, you have a true passion.
Yeah. I do have a passion for that. It's one of the things that I kind of, the way I was raised, the way I grew up, and the circumstances I've been in, I just saw where many times the Latino community was underserved, underrepresented, and even though they're out there doing an excellent job, there's not enough recognition that goes towards the Latino. Mm-hmm. So I consider part of my job is to elevate the profile of a lot of these successful Latinos, and as you said, to be a champion for them. And equally as important is to find those that are on that cusp of being successful and help motivate them to get them over the line to become successful. Okay. Successful entrepreneurs, successful business leaders, whatever they want to be successful in, I try to make it my job to help them reach that level of success.
Okay. Let's go back to the beginning, because obviously where you are today, it wasn't...
I was born on a Saturday.
You were born on a Saturday?
We're going to go that far back?
Let's go.
Okay.
I think people need to know what drives JR. And so there's a lot of it has to do with how you grew up, and as your vision was expanding and you saw opportunities, you made decisions to pursue in certain directions, and so you've accomplished a lot of things. So take us back. How was JR's childhood?
I think I had a good childhood. I was born in Mercedes, a little pueblito there on the frontera of Texas and Mexico, Low Rio Grande Valley, RGV all the way. Dad was in the military, mom was a teacher. So had loving parents, had a good upbringing. Yeah, but there were some things growing up that I saw that just didn't quite set right with me. For example, I was going to school in Mercedes in 2nd grade. And at that time, and that was just the way of the world at the time, if you spoke Spanish in school, you were taken to the principal's office
Wow.
and paddled. Corporal punishment, you were being paddled for speaking your native tongue. They considered it a dirty language. You don't speak it. If you're going to learn to speak English, you speak Spanish, you're paddled. So I tell you what, you learn English real quick. You don't need this ESL nonsense there is today. I mean, boom. I had calluses on my butt for a while there. I was getting sent to the office so much. So that's one of the things, it just didn't seem right. And then going through school, we all have our little trials and tribulations. But when I enrolled in college, at the time it was Southwest Texas State University, I did notice one thing that was very evident, that upon my enrollment, I kid around and say, I increased the Latino population on campus by at least 33%, because there was me, the groundskeepers, and the cafeteria ladies. And that's about it. There wasn't very many Latinos. Now I'm proud to say that Texas State is a Latino serving institution.
Sure.
So, it has definitely a high population. But looking at that, seeing that void of Latino and Latino representationship, just kind of resonated with me. And I go, why? Then you go from South Texas, like the Rio Grande Valley, and then you travel in other parts of the country, and it's just completely different. It's like night and day. And so I said, well, if it's like night and day, why? Even though there are a lot of Latinos out there, spread out through the country, but a lot of them weren't taking the leadership roles necessary and weren't collectively amplifying their voice of what they needed and what their dreams, wants, and desires were.
That's very interesting. So then when did you actually start to travel more around the country and begin to notice those different worlds between Texas and the other states and how Latinos were actually
Well, a couple key things. One, I've always been involved with Hispanic Chambers of Commerce.
Well,
And then when I got involved with the United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and especially when I became chairman of the board and then president and CEO, I had the opportunity to travel all over the country. And as I'm traveling in different parts of the country, it's kind of becoming more and more noticeable. I'd be in different parts of the country and people would kind of look at me and go, what are you? Are you Middle Eastern? Are you Mexican? Are you, I go, what? I go, whatever you want me to be, just get me on the plane. It got to a point where I just started wearing a Texas T-shirt, and and when I go into TSA or checking in, I go, how y'all doing? My name's J.R. Gonzales, I'm from Texas. And it's kind of like, okay. So Texas was it, and so when I definitely started noticing some of those, to answer your question, noticing some of those changes as I had the opportunity to travel in different parts of the country. And I've been very blessed. I've actually traveled in a lot of different parts of the world, and so it's just amazing where I've been to China 13 times. I've stood on Costa Rica, I've been to Spain, I've been to France, I've been all these places, and a lot of those places people are speaking multiple languages. And it's no big deal. But here in the United States, by golly, you're in America, you better speak English. And where it's just society, for some reason, has this resistance of speaking other languages than English and not recognizing the benefit. Now, it's interesting. Like I said, when I was in school, they used to paddle you, for speaking Spanish. Now you have all these non-Hispanic white parents that want to put their kids into, learn a second language, learn Spanish, learn French, learn something else other than English, because they intuitively know that that's going to benefit them in not only in their life and their future, and their earning potential as a business person.
Yeah, I can speak a little bit to that. Being born in Mexico, actually, I speak English, some más o menos.
You're doing pretty good
Spanish.
so far. So.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
I think it's been being able to travel back and forth. But what I'm saying is that I understand the value of that, being able to go to Mexico, build business there, come here, and understanding the culture and the language, so critical. So what have you seen has been, I always say, and I heard this from a mentor of mine, that Latinos invented the side hustle, right? Latinos really invented, right, entrepreneurship. There's a lot of influencers talking a lot of big game about entrepreneurship, but we actually, out of necessity, had to be entrepreneurs. What have you identified as one of the biggest challenges in our community as they try to go in business for themselves?
I think a lot of it, well, not only for our community, is be willing to take the risk.
Yeah.
A lot of folks are just afraid of taking that risk. And then two, when they do take the risk, just make sure, and this isn't for Latinos, but everybody,
Sure.
is many people start businesses and are just undercapitalized. You know, access to capital are undercapitalized. They don't understand the dynamics or the steps needed to do a successful business. They may make a good widget. They may have the best widget in the world, but if they don't know how to run a company to produce that widget, pues, it's not going to be very successful.
Yeah. Do you find that education, like going to a business education versus just continuing to hustle, struggle, some ideas will survive based on the perseverance of the entrepreneur?
Well, Mauricio, I'm never going to say no to education. Education is key.
Yeah.
Education is the cornerstone of any successful society. For myself, have a college degree, went through it, but I never took a business course, which if I'd have taken a business course, the outcome in my life might have been different. Maybe I'd been more successful. Maybe I wouldn't even be in business. When I was younger and I had some successful businesses going on, people would ask me often, so Jared, what do you attribute your success to? And I go, being too stupid to quit. I mean, when by all logic, I should have thrown in the towel, filed bankruptcy, quit, changed my model, said this isn't going to work out. I just wouldn't quit. I said, no, I'm going to make this work. I'm going to make this work. And just that sheer perseverance of trying to make something work despite what the numbers told you is one of my faults, but also one of the things that helped me get to what I wanted to achieve.
I hope this doesn't come out the wrong way, but I just read it and it made me think. Basically says that people with lower IQs tend to be more successful in life.
I believe it because I know some pretty stupid rich people. I mean,
and maybe that's because you don't have the ability to look towards the future and understand all the consequences and just keep going.
You just keep on going.
Yeah.
And with me, it wasn't, I don't think it was a matter of IQ, but just sheer ignorance of the business world.
Yeah.
And I learned it the hard way. And I mean, I've made a lot of money, but you know what? I've lost a lot of money. Mm-hmm. And that it depends on any given year where the balance kind of goes back and forth. Mm-hmm. But it's only money. And I think that's the attitude. One of the things that I would do consistently is that my CPA would approach me and say, Jared, we have a problem. You know, what is it? Because we need to cut back. We need to do this. We're not bringing in enough revenue. And he goes, and so as he gives me this list of cuts, I go, don't tell me where we need to cut back. Just tell me how much more I need to make.
Oh, that's great.
So there was that whole attitude. No. I don't want to cut back. I don't want to give up anything I already have. You just tell me how much more I got to make, and I'll go out and work harder to make sure that we reach that goal so we can continue our lifestyle.
Let's carve out a little more on that,
okay.
Of that, because I spent the last 2 decades in the space of financial planning, retirement planning, and some of the basic fundamentals. The conventional wisdom is, save, is pay yourself first. All those principles are great, but they're all predicated on live below your means. It's never about earn more. And I find in real practice is that you can only cut so much. Like some people come in and it's like, I'm 45, I'm 50, and I've realized I haven't set up anything for retirement. Well, they could take the entire salary and they still wouldn't be able to save enough to make enough. So this idea of save your morning latte and save it is not working, but rather you can earn more money. And that seems to be the mentality that you've had. So how did you come up with, like, where do you have that paradigm shift? Because that is not the conventional way of thinking.
It wasn't the conventional way of thinking, and it was a shift. It's kind of like, there again, call it arrogance, call it ego, whatever you want to call it. Is I was determined. I felt I had a good plan, I had a good product, I had a good business, and I did not want to cut back, nor did I want to throw in the towel. I go, I am going to make this work. Mm-hmm. And it was just that determination one way or another to make it work and get creative, not necessarily a side hustle, but sometimes retooling or reshifting or reinventing what you're doing and getting a larger audience or going to a little bit of a pivot into a different direction to bring in the necessary revenue to balance everything out.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Every time I find myself in that moment where you're like about to go broke, I just go very aggressive in marketing. That has always helped me go move forward. So in your career as an entrepreneur first, what was one of those very difficult moments in your life that you can remember? And what was the mental the mentality or the paradigm required to overcome that? If you can bring some up.
Well, there's been multiple difficulties in my life. I think business-wise, I was faced with a situation where, and anybody listening out there, one of the things I learned at an early age, don't mess with IRS. They're going to get you one way or another. They'll get you while you're alive. They'll get you after you die. They'll get you. They'll just get you. So in one of my business ventures, I was in a predicament where I had IRS on my case. I've been audited a couple times. I mean, it's kind of like, that's a pain. Fortunately, they found nothing, and each time they owed me a little bit of money, which I thought was pretty cool. But the time, money, and expense I had to put out just to go through an audit with my attorneys, with my CPA, and everything else was substantial. But it's kind of like, okay, JR, you're in this situation. We figure you owe IRS this much. Now, we'll cut you a break. We'll cut this amount into a fraction of the cost if you close your business as a ongoing business right now. Just shut down and you just pay us this much and we're square. And I go, well, wait a minute. If I shut down, then I put how many people out of work? Then how am I going to earn money to pay this back? And I go, and if I don't shut down, I continue, well, then you're going to owe the full amount.
What?
And
I've never heard anything
well,
like that.
it was insane. I go, you know what? Heck with it. I'll pay the full amount. I'll pay but I'm not putting my people out of work right before Christmas, nor am I shutting down my company that I worked so hard to build. And so I just said, was it the smart move? Probably not. Was it the right move for me? Yes. I was not going to throw in the towel on something that I knew was working. And it was just one of those things where what had happened, it was, I think it was the 80s with the real estate market crash and all that, where I had a lot of clients that weren't able to pay me. They went under, they filed bankruptcy, they weren't able to pay me. And then of course I had to pay my employees and then all those other taxes that go along with that. I didn't have the cash flow to maintain some of those, so in other words, I was paying taxes on money I hadn't even earned.
Oh, exactly.
So I had to pay my employees out of my own pocket or another source.
And that's where the taxes that need to be paid.
And then the taxes on top of that. And that's
the
the situation that came about. And I was like, damn. But I said, no, I'm not going to quit. This thing has been working this long. So we're just gonna do it. So I think the mentality was just that one of not giving up and just coming to the conclusion or the resolve that you are going to be successful no matter what, and you're going to bump into difficulties, you're going to have obstacles, you're going to have things put in front of you that look like they're hopeless, but nothing is hopeless. Just keep on working and keep on plugging away and figure out a way to get through it, around it, over it, under it, whatever it takes. Be determined that you have what it takes to get there.
Determination, perseverance, but I do want to highlight, don't mess with the IRS.
Do not mess with the IRS.
Any practical advice you could give us, the audience of us, right? Because sometimes we'll go in business, right? We're just earning money, spending to grow it, and we're not really paying much attention. Most people just kind of react once they have the problem.
Yeah.
Because somebody's not knocking the door.
When I first started my business too, I didn't realize that the county tax assessor collector could actually freeze your bank account for non-payment. And I go, non-payment of what? They go, well, the furniture you have, JR. I mean, the pictures on the wall, the furniture, your desk, you owe taxes on that. I go, I've already paid for them. I paid the taxes on them when I bought them. Now you want to tax me again? They go, well, that's the way it works. So, like I said, if I would have took a business class in college, I may have understood this a little bit more.
All right, so there it is. That's where the education with the sweat comes into play.
Sheer ignorance. I didn't know they had the power to do that. So when I go to make a withdrawal, and they said your account's been frozen, I go, by who? I go, by the county tax assessor.
I mean, I guess I shouldn't say that they wouldn't teach you if you went to business school. Listen, I've met with doctors, lawyers, and I find that sometimes in the finances, they're a true mess. They're great doctors. They've never learned anything about money. They didn't go to school about business.
And a lot of very successful people, they don't know about it either because they have an army of accountants and lawyers and CPAs and everybody to deal with that stuff.
So as long as they know somebody that knows what they don't know, that's all they need to know. Okay. Yeah, that actually sounded well. So right now, what are you working on?
Oh, a couple things. Right now I'm spending a lot of time with an organization I love, which is TAMAC, the Texas Association of Mexican American Chambers of Commerce. It's a 48-year-old organization. I mean, that's where I really cut my teeth. I went from I was real involved with the Austin Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. I was involved with them. I was Volunteer of the Year with them. Became Businessman of the Year. I got on the board of directors, and I was chairman of the board for 2 terms, and then president and CEO for a period of time. Then I got involved with TAMAC, which is the statewide Hispanic Chamber.
Yeah.
And then after that, I went to the United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, where I was on its board of directors and served as chairman of the board for that organization, and then president and CEO. So I love chamber work. It enables me to stay entrepreneurial, help other people, and use my experience to guide other people into hopefully becoming successful. But one of the things that we're working on right now is we're actually about to launch a program called Leadership Ventajas. And it's going to be a statewide leadership program, getting 25 individuals with leadership experience already and some degree of wherewithal, get them, and then for a 6-month program, we are going to train and teach them how to be better leaders, but more importantly, how to get themselves onto boards and commissions, because we need more Latinos and Latinas on organizational boards, on board of directors of corporations, on county or city or state commissions, and we're training them in ways that even if they want to run for public office, they can do so at the end of the program.
Very cool.
So we have that, and we have a podcast that I do that kind of keeps my time. As you well know, it can take a lot of time, a weekly podcast called the Latino Business Report, and that's kind of fun to do, interviewing people and going out there. But one of the things I enjoy doing, Mauricio, is just travel. I enjoy traveling, meeting other people, and coming up with ideas of going, and I don't want to call it a side hustle, but it's kind of like, what other thing can I do to add another stream of revenue into my bank account? And something that I can enjoy, something that I enjoy doing, and it's fun. Or what can I do to actually save money from having to pay somebody else to do this?
Yeah, that is key. A lot of people, though, sometimes misunderstand that having like 10 things that they want to do and they try to get 10 different revenue streams. I've tried to do that. I personally, not putting words in your mouth, I tried that, it didn't work, but focus on one thing. Once you get strong revenue, then I have other things that we can do. But just so, because there's a lot of young dreamers looking
There's
at
a lot of
podcasts.
dreamers, and they go, well, I'm a multitasker. You know, that whole multitasking thing, to me, I question that, because you have to stay focused enough on a project to make it successful. My problem is
They want to be Elon Musk. We got 10 companies.
Yeah. My problem is once I master something, I get bored.
Right.
The challenge isn't there anymore. I want to go do something else. So if I get something, a company or a process that I mastered and I'm bringing in good revenue on it, I don't want to give it up, but then I'm going, okay, this isn't challenging anymore. Let me show somebody else how to do this for me and run it, and then I'm going to go create something else.
So in a way, it's something that you're not just looking at it purely as a revenue stream, but something you can be passionate about. Because when you're passionate about it, then you can't wait to get up in the morning and create.
Well, I tell people, some people work to live. I live to work.
That's great.
I'm putting in. Someone asked me today, how many hours a week do you put in? I go, at least 60. They go, why do you work so much? I go, well, for me it's not work. I mean, I get up, I enjoy it. I enjoy, editing the podcast. I enjoy coming up with a new plan. I enjoy putting together a business plan or a marketing piece, or coming up with a campaign that's going to be successful to achieve this goal. And when those things happen and they all put together, you just sit back and go, okay, you still got it. You can do it, because
there's a lot of satisfaction.
There is. And, in my background for a long time, I had a public relations advertising firm.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Let's talk about that.
And I would tell staff, okay, there's 3 types of people in this world. There's those who watch the news, those who report the news, and those of us that create the news. So what are we going to create today? So it's really pretty cool that when you're watching the 6 o'clock or 10 o'clock news, and a line that you wrote in a press release is repeated by the on-air personality, verbatim. It's kind of, they're going, I wrote that line. That's pretty cool. So it's just kind of nice when you knock out your press releases or do stuff that you create or you write actually gets repeated on the air. And that's what I used to tell a lot of my clients. I tell my clients to go, first of all, don't believe all your press, because I wrote most of it for you. And I mean, it's true. It's true. So I just enjoy the process of creating. And I think I've been very, very blessed. I mean, I actually went to school. I studied public relations advertising at Southwest Texas State. And to have a career this long in that industry, I feel very fortunate.
Thank you for that. As we wrap up, you have the pulse in the Latino community. You've been watching it since you were a kid. You've traveled all over the country. You've looked at their needs. Everybody understands the Latino community has such a great power in terms of purchasing power, everything. What are we lacking to really take our position to represent, you know, from in the corporate world, in the political space? In your eyes, what do you think is the lacking part?
That's a great question. That's a great question. Unfortunately, as we look at the Latino community, well, not so unfortunately, let me back up.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't realize, if you were to get all the Latinos in the United States today, and if we were to be our own country, we'd have the 5th largest GDP in the world.
Wow.
The 5th largest GDP in the world. Over the past decade, the Latino community has been the 3rd fastest, if it were its own country, it would be the 3rd fastest growing GDP in the world. So the thing with the Latino community is we come from about 22 different countries of origin, and everybody wants to wear the flag on their forehead. Soy mexicano, soy cubano, soy
yeah, hondureño, soy salvadoreño, soy
everybody's.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, okay,
Argentino,
instead of focusing on our differences, where are we together?
Yeah.
Let's come to one community, and let's amplify that voice into the needs that we have. And some of the needs is that, unfortunately, especially in the media today, it's the demonization of Latinos, especially when they show this B-roll footage of people jumping over a fence or crossing the river.
Always happens around election time.
Always happens election time. You know, and all the problems in the world can be pointed to open borders, to illegal immigrants, to this and that.
It's sad.
It's sad.
So sad.
It is sad. It's kind of like, come on, guys. First of all, without that immigrant labor, your crops would die on the vine. And in Florida and in some places, it's happening already. They don't have enough labor to go out there in the fields or in construction sites to get the job done. I mean, we need that. And the fact that some people will go, well, you know, you're just trying to cancel us white people out. I go, no, we're not canceling anybody out. The fact is, as non-Hispanic whites, according to the Census Bureau, your numbers are declining by your own fault. In other words, you're not having enough children. That's not our fault that you're not having kids. Don't blame us. But as far as Latinos skew younger. Average age of Latinos is going to be about 27 to 29 in this country, where everybody else is going to be about 35, going 40. We're younger with childbearing years. A lot of us are good Catholics, lots of kids, and then at the same time, we're in the workforce. So between 2020 and 2030, 78% of all new workers entering the workforce will be Latino. 78% of all new workers in the workforce will be Latino from the years 2020. It is
staggering.
It is.
That's why I was in awe, because I've never heard it. We'd be the third GDP and GDP, or as an economy worldwide out of 190.
The third fastest growing GDP in the world.
That's crazy.
And we're currently the fifth largest GDP in the world with the buying power. And then two, a lot of folks don't realize.
Crazy good.
And I'm working with another organization right now that I'm new to it, but I've learned a lot. The Export-Import Bank of the United States. Mm-hmm. What amazes me is, as entrepreneurs, we're looking at market share. We're looking at your neighbor, your city, your state. Maybe you want to go national. But you know what? Only about 5% of the global consumers are here in the United States, and 95% of potential consumers are someplace else. So I think one of the things we need to start looking in, especially in businesses, how do we export our goods and services? How do we export our products and capture that larger market share? I mean, here in the United States, we have 300 million plus population. Mm-hmm. In China, you have 1.3 billion. Mm-hmm. I mean, we're the 0.3. I mean, there's just so many. Wow. And in China, they love American products. And so, like I said, I've been to China multiple times. I see it as not only a potential for business, but I also see it as probably one of our biggest political and economic threats on a geo-global scale, in that they are there, they're there in numbers. We're Americans, we were looking for that quick fix, that instant gratification. Chinese will look at stuff, when they make plans, they make them for the next generation. They're thinking 7 years down the road of what they do. We're just looking at how's this going to affect me today or how's this going to affect me tomorrow.
That's a very interesting thing to see.
So in the global picture, I think we need to be a little more cognizant of the countries around us. And back to your question, as a Latino population, we need to learn to set our own countries of origins flag aside, work together for the benefit of all, because as John F. Kennedy said in a speech in 1963, a rising tide lifts all boats. And as the Latino population continues to grow, the work ethic, the entrepreneurship, the number of businesses, I mean, we're the rising tide.
Yeah, that makes total sense, because in the end, the one thing we have in common, it didn't matter where we come from, we're here.
We're here.
Pursuing the same thing for our families. We go to work with the same objective. Why not really come together?
Yeah. And then one of the things that cracks me up is people go, well, they say like the Latino community, like it's the sleeping giant, you know, and we're now waking up. Hombre, we haven't been asleep. You know, we've just been busy working to pay attention. We've always had the numbers. We're a huge economic force. And then if you look at it, Texas, even though California has more Latinos in the state of California than Texas, Texas is has a more stable economy. Yeah. And I believe a lot of that stability of that economy is due to the Latino population. It's due to our immigrants. It's due to our workforce. It's due to that. Not only that entrepreneurial spirit, but also that determination to succeed. And I say it kind of tongue-in-cheek in some of my speeches. I go, you know what? If the world were ever to have another ice age, if there's some sort of horrific, you know, event, global event that would just decimate everybody, says, I know two things. I know something for sure. Says, if anybody can survive it, it's going to be cockroaches and Latinos. We will endure. We will make it through anything. We'll survive whatever comes our way or Mother Nature has to put our way, and we'll make it through.
Well, I tell you what, seeing what my grandparents went through, what my parents went through, I would attest to that. We've become a little bit more soft.
Yeah.
But we should have that blood. That's in the DNA.
We should. And you know, you asked me a question earlier, just to kind of go back to that. I think in my mindset, there's something that really, really was pivotal, that it struck a chord. I was working, when I was in college, I took a job working in construction, and it was a good paying construction job at the time. It was $5 an hour. I mean, at the time, that was good money.
Sure.
You know, $5 an hour in the 110-degree temperature with long sleeve shirts, blue jeans, hard hat, you know, safety glasses. I mean, that was work. So one day, I'm coming back on the work bus, and this was out in San Marcos, and the bus doesn't drop us off at the parking lot where we all parked our vehicles. It cut through something else and went right by Sewell Park. Now, Sewell Park, for those who are familiar with San Marcos, I mean, there's the river that goes right there, right through the park. And I'll admit, I was tired. I was tired of school. I'm working my tail off to make tuition, to buy books. I mean, I was about to start my junior year, and I'm going, yeah, I'm tired of going to school. I mean, I was ready to quit. Then I look out there at Sewell Park, and I see this scene in my mind. I can see it vividly. There's the cool San Marcos River flowing, people in inner tubes having their, drinking their beers. There's the young co-eds, sunbathing out there. There's the guys playing hacky sack. And I just go, that's not fair. I mean, I'm having to do this, and what are they doing? It just didn't seem right. But then, here's where the light bulb went off. Mm-hmm. Go, wait a minute. And I looked at him and said, wait a minute. They're laying out in the sun trying to get brown as they're studying their Spanish books. I was already ahead of the game. So from that point on, it was that mental shift that goes, let's not use what your own background as an excuse or as a crutch. Use it to your advantage and go, I don't need to lay out in the sun to try to get brown. I don't need to study my Spanish, 101 book as much as some of these other folks, because you already got it. And then I had some, I won't mention their names, but I had some people that lived next door to me, two great guys in dormitories there, and they were rodeo riders. One was a bull rider, and the other was a clown, was a rodeo clown. And they used to give me a hard time. They'd go, hey, Meskin, Beaner, Wetback, they'd call me all kinds of names. And I'm going, okay, fine. So one day they said something. I just, hey, man, thank you. I really appreciate it. And actually, you should thank me. They go, thank you for what? I go, come on. Well, you don't have to thank me, but, at least my people, the Mexicans and Latino population. They go, for what? I go, you guys are rodeo riders. That's the way you make a living. You're a rodeo clown, you're a bull rider. He goes, yeah, and we do quite well at it. He says, well, I go, first of all, I said, I'm glad you do. But the reason is, I go, stop and think about it. Did horses come over on the Mayflower? No. It was the Spanish conquistadores that brought them into Mexico, and it was the vaqueros that taught the Anglo settlers coming into Texas how to be cowboys. I mean, rodeo, it's not even an English word. Rodeo, So it's kind of like the whole, great American cowboy, have Latinos, have Mexicans, the vaqueros to thank for that way of life. So as this country grows, the Latino influence is woven into the tapestry of just about everything that there is. And without it, the country would be completely different. And it's because of that I believe that not only Texas, but California and other states with high Latino populations are so successful economically because they have that population there to do a lot of that work. There you go.
JR.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. It was a great talk, man.
Oh, no.
Learned a lot of great stuff, and I'm sure you did too. So make sure that you follow JR. We'll put all his links in here. Follow the podcast, everything that he's doing, and don't forget to share this channel, this video, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care.